So, check this out, people. It is over 100 degrees today here in the Metro Manila area in the Philippines. It is so hot, it is unbearable. Anyway, today I want to talk about the Filipino women. For those who are foreigners and who have never dated a Filipino or who have never been to the Philippines, and who don't understand how the system works here or how women work in this country, right? One of the things you have to understand when you meet a Filipina is that the odds of her being married are pretty high. The odds of her having children are pretty high. When you meet a Filipina online or however it is you meet her, it's usually a woman who's in her 30s or older. Usually, when you meet a Filipina who's of that age, she tends to be married. Filipinas tend to marry early, unlike the women in the US who don't marry at all if they do marry. And when they do marry, it ranges. There really is no standard age for most American women. And not that most American women are married, because as we already know, most Americans do not marry anymore. Unfortunately, women have destroyed marriage in the US. Yes, women, not men, because it is women who file for divorce. Usually, most of the time, 80% of the time, is the woman. And it's not always because they're being abused, like they say. They always have some stupid excuse. Even though the man works and supports them and pays the bills, he may pay the rent, he may pay the schools, not just for his children, but sometimes hers if she had children from a previous relationship. And so women tend to take advantage of men back home in the US, and this is why most men seek love outside of the US. But if you are one of those men who have been disillusioned by the American women and you're looking for love outside, the odds of you finding a Filipina who is single and not married are very slim, because most single Filipinas are married. Most single Filipinas have children. Yes. And the only way you're going to meet a Filipina that isn't married is if you find one who's under 25. And if you're a man who's looking for a woman who's under 25, I don't recommend that. I don't recommend that, because though most Filipinas are mature, and you will find that Filipino women are very, very mature. They have a lot of class. They're very feminine. Most women here know how to cook from an early age. They know how to take care of their husbands, their men, their boyfriends, their children. They're very responsible when it comes to the household. The problem is that here in Asia, you will find that once a woman is no longer with her husband, they tend to stay alone. That isn't a problem in itself. The problem is that it's just kind of strange to me, right? Because most women in the US, they'll get divorced and they'll find a man the next day and they'll continue to date. But that doesn't happen here in the Philippines as often. Most Filipino men do not chase women. You won't see a man talking to a woman who he's never met. In the US, men walk up to women all the time and address them and talk to them and flirt with them and rap to them and try to get to know them. That's not something typical of the Philippines. So most women who end up being divorced or separated tend to stay alone because most men will not pursue them. Usually, The courting happens at a young age. It happens in high school. It happens during college. And so most of the time you will find that if you meet a woman who's Filipina, she will probably have been in a relationship. She probably has children. She's probably married, but yet single. And her husband most likely has another family somewhere else and has forgotten about his wife and current children. Unfortunately, if you're an older man like I am, I didn't want to be with a woman who was less than 40. I'm in my 50s, so I wanted to be with a woman who's classy, who has experience, who who's already gotten over the stupidity and nonsense of being a young wife or a young girlfriend, who's not into the drama and the nonsense that they believe is going to keep a relationship healthy because they watch too much drama. I wanted to get with a woman who was in her 40s. And when I've dated women here in the Philippines, they've always been 40 or older, usually 40. And so if you decide to date a woman here, know this, that if you want a single woman, most likely you would have to find someone who's 25 and younger so that she isn't married or doesn't have children. Because most likely an older Filipina will have already been married. And because there's no divorce here, and if you do meet a Filipina who once was married, she will still be married and she will long still be married no matter how many years you and her are together. And you will never be able to marry her because she's already married. There's no divorce in the Philippines. Look, the women I've dated here have always been married. I've I've never dated a single Filipina because, again, if I'm going to date a single Filipina, she has to be at least 25 or younger. I'm not trying to go there. I'm not with the drama. I'm not with the nonsense. So I'm not going to have that. And so the woman that I'm with is very humble. She's sweet. She's very feminine. And just like every other Filipina, she's very attentive. And you will find that in most Filipinas, and I don't think it matters the age. I really don't. I've watched videos where there are men whose wives are in their 20s and they're in their 60s. In the end, everybody knows why they're here. Most foreigners who are in their 60s are looking for companionship. They're not looking for sex because at that age, really, let's keep it real. And so the Filipina who may be in her 20s and who's dating the 60-year-old or marrying the 60-year-old foreigner is not looking for sex from him either. We both know that. They're just looking for stability. They're looking for financial stability. And they both know exactly what it is they're looking for and what it is they want. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as they're both consenting adults. And most American men are looking to be at peace with a companion that can do for them the things that they do for their companion. Because all a man wants is a woman to stay at home, a woman who cooks, who cleans, who takes care of him, and who caters to him so that he in turn could do the same for her financially. And that's why most American men, most foreigners come to this country because they know they're going to get exactly that. And the women here know that they're going to get in a foreigner what they are not going to get from their own Filipino men because unfortunately, most Filipino men have been feminized just like most American men have been feminized. And the problem with most Filipinas here in this country is that they feminize their boys and they completely neglect their daughters. Most women who have boys and girls, and this is a fact, you can just see this for yourself if you ever lived in the Philippines or if you plan to visit, you will find that when a mother has both a daughter and a son, she will caress the boy more. She will kiss him more. She will cater to him more and tend to treat him the way fathers and mothers treat our daughters back home in the US. Because Americans tend to be more affectionate to the women, to the girls, than they are to the boys. But here's the opposite. Most parents tend to be more affectionate to the boys than they are the girls. They tend to neglect the girls and give too much attention to their boys, raising them as, I'm sorry to say, little bitches. That's the only word I can use. That's the most accurate word I can use. Because when these young boys grow up, they expect from their wives the very same things that their mothers did for them. To cater to them hand and foot while they sit down and watch television. To get up and give them water because they can't get up and do it for them. Because mommy did those things for him. He needs her to do the same for him. And there's nothing wrong with a woman catering to a man as long as the man is willing to do the same for her. And unfortunately, most Filipino men are the opposite of what I'm used to seeing a man to be back home in the US. And that is that the man is the breadwinner and the woman is the head of household because she is in charge of the family, while he is in charge of both the wife and the children. But here's the opposite. Most women work while most men sit at home or drink or hang out at the bar or don't do anything. And for some reason, most women are attracted to that type of man. It's not just here, it's all over, including the US. This is one of the things you will find, that women are tired of supporting themselves here, of supporting their children, of holding down the family, of feeding the husband, of going to work, of bringing home the money, paying the rent, paying the phone, the electricity, his phone also, her husband's phone, because this guy doesn't do anything. And I'm not trying to bash Filipino men because I know, just like most people in this country know, that not all men are like this. And this is not just in the Philippines, this is in general because it happens the same in the US, and no matter where you live. But I've never seen it so much so like I see it here in the Philippines. Unfortunately, it's not the man's fault, it's the woman's fault, it's the mother's fault, who tend to baby their boys and feminize them rather than teaching them to be independent so that they can learn to fend for themselves when mommy's not around. So they can treat their wives appropriately and do for their wives the same things they do for their mother. Instead, they want their wives to do for them what their mother did for them. And that's the problem I find here in the Philippines, is that men are feminized while the women are masculinized. And that's something that's going on back home in the US also. Most men want women to pay for the date. Most men sit at home playing video games while the woman works because women want to be strong and independent. And there's nothing worse than a strong, independent woman who complains about not having a real man when she wants to be stronger and more independent than her own husband. You know, it kills me when a woman says that she's a strong, independent woman, because men have always been strong and independent, and we don't say that we're strong, independent men. And women have it twisted, they have it backwards. This is why most men don't stay. This is why most men sit back and let them do all the work, because they want to be strong and independent. You see, ladies, it works both ways. You can have a good man that's willing to do for you, as long as you can be a good woman who's willing to be a housewife. Instead, you want to be a strong, independent woman who wants to cater to your man, who wants to work, who wants to pay the bills, who wants to control the relationship. And when the man says, go ahead, and he's hanging out with your best friend because she doesn't work as much, or he's hanging out with the boys at the bar because he doesn't work as much because he works and then he goes home, you want to be strong and independent and lose your family. It works both ways, people. So men, who are home in the US and who want to come to the Philippines. There are plenty of single women here. Plenty. You will find that about 8 out of 10 women are single, but married, but with children. There's always a catch. And most women who are not married with children, again, are going to be under the age of 25. And if you're like me, and you're older, and you're 40 and above, most likely you may not want a woman who's 25 or under because you've already been through the drama and don't want to go through it again. Most women here are mature, including the 25-year-old young women. You will find that women here are exactly that. Women. They look like women, they dress like women, and they act like women, unlike the women back home in the US who have become masculinized. Okay? So if you are thinking about coming to the Philippines, if you've met a woman who's Filipina, know this. Yes, she may be married. Yes, she may have children. But if she's willing to be there for you and has no contact with her husband and they've been separated for years and he has his own family and she has her own life, I don't see why you can't date her. I don't see why you can't be with her. Women date married men all the time. Women live with married men all the time who are just separated. I was married and separated for some 20 years before I was divorced. And I was in relationships for many years thereafter, up until I was divorced. And so I don't have a problem dating a woman who's married and has been separated from her husband for many years. It's not something that I would recommend. I wish it wasn't this way, but I met someone. She's sweet, she's kind, she treats me right, and I'm going to do the same for her. So just keep that in mind that if you meet a woman, she will most likely be married if she's above 25. And if you're not happy with that, most likely you're going to have to date someone who's much younger than you.